Hi friends, welcome to Codelligent. In this series of videos, we will learn Python programming. As you might be knowing, the way Python is complementing the development of applications related to AI and ML, slowly Python is becoming one of the most popular languages in the market. So let's get started. Python was initially developed by Codelligent, who is a Dutch programmer, and it was first officially released in the year of 1991. And currently we have a very strong community who is backing up the development of Python, and they have been named as Python Software Foundation, which is a non-profit organization based out of USA. The official website, if you want to know any information related to Python, is python.org, where you have the latest versions which you can download and the documentation related to Python. So in any case you have any doubt, this is the website which you must be visiting. So as of now, at the time of this recording of this video, the latest stable version which is available in the market is 3.12, and there are some minor versions under this. Before getting into Python, first we will understand how it is slightly different from other languages. So when I'm speaking about other languages, it's mainly about the other popular languages like C#, C++, Java. Python is an interpreted language and not a compiler based language. So what does that mean? That means the code is executed line by line by something called an interpreter. Unlike C++, Java or C#, where the whole code is compiled and converted into a machine language before it is executed. So there are advantages and disadvantages of being an interpreted language. So if you want to check more about it, you can Google about interpreted language versus compiled languages, and you will see there are a lot of differences internally. So we will not get into the details as of now. One of the main differences between Python and the other languages like C#, C++, Java is the way we are defining the scope. So here in Python, we don't define the scope using the curly braces. Instead, we use indentation. What does that mean? So if you are familiar with the other languages, you might be writing code in this format, wherein you have a condition and you start curly braces, and inside that you write the statements which you want to execute based on that condition. Whereas when it comes to Python, you don't have these curly braces. You write condition, colon, and then you give the other statements based on the indentation, and based on indentation the interpreter will understand whether these statements must be executed under the condition or it is not related to the condition. So the spacing is very important. So as per the Python's guidelines, which is defined under PEP8, it says 4 spaces is the correct way of giving the indentation, whereas it's not restricted, it's just a guideline. So you can use 1 space, you can use 3 space, 4 space, or you can even use tab. So while typing, most of the people might be comfortable with a tab, but make sure you use the same format down. So that means if statement 1 is given 1 space and the statement 2 is given 2 space, then it will consider only statement 1 under the condition 1 and it will give error. So be very careful when you are giving an indentation, and when you are comfortable with one kind of indentation, try to follow that across while coding. Now we will see how to install Python and start with the basic coding. So if you are on a Windows machine or a Mac machine, you can come to www.python.org and you can find the section downloads. You can just go under that, and you can see here you have the option to download the latest stable release of Python. And if you are using Mac OS, then you can go here. And I don't think many of the flavors which we have these days, like Debian, Linux and all, you might not need to install Python. It might be coming pre-installed. And if you have any specific requirement of any other version, you don't want the latest stable release, in the same page you have all the available versions to download directly. So I'm currently on a Windows machine, so I'll just click on this download, so which will download an exe. I'll just run that. So now this is the installer which pops up, and make sure you take this particular option, that is add python.exe to the path. If it is not added, then you will have to explicitly go and add this particular installation path into your system environment variables path, so that your command line recognizes the Python installation. And if you are using any non-admin or secondary users, then it is good idea to check this option as well, but this is not mandatory. So now I click on install. It will take some time to install, so I'll just fast forward this. So finally it is installed and it says setup was successful, and that's it. So now you have Python on your machine. Now to verify, there are multiple ways. So the easiest way is you can go to your command line and you can just type Python or py. So when you type, it just gets into the Python environment. I can just say exit, and the same command will work even if you type py instead of Python. So now with this you can confirm that Python has been installed. But one point to note, on your command prompt, this Python command will work only if the Python path was added in the system variable path. So make sure that exists. So now we will see what are the various ways where you can practice Python. So when you installed Python, you already got two interfaces to interact with Python interpreter. One is in the command prompt. Apart from that, in your Windows programs, you can just search for idle, and you will see there is an idle which is already installed, which is an application provided by the Python itself. So when you open that, it gives you a shell where you can practice Python. So you can practice Python either in this shell or in the command line by typing Python. So now you can see both provide same interfaces. And if you really don't want to install Python on your machine, if you are working on someone else's machine and you don't have the privilege to install, you can just go to the python.org and you can just say /shell. So this will provide you a online interface where you can start typing your Python. Also, if you are a beginner, it's a good idea to check thonny.org, wherein it provides a beginner friendly IDE, that is integrated development environment, for learning Python. So this IDE is specially designed and developed for Python. So you can download this free of cost onto your machine and you can install it. And you can see it has all the variants for Windows, Mac and Linux. So in this tutorial, we will be mainly using idle shell in the beginner phases, and later once we start doing full-fledged programming, we will be moving on to Visual Studio Code, which is one of the most popular IDE getting used in the market. When you start in learning any programming language, the first thing which you start learning is how to declare variables, how we assign value to variables, how we print them, how we take input from the user. So let's start with that. In Python, it's very easy to create a variable. There are no other keywords required. You can just type the variable name. So for example, var1 equal to the value which you want to assign. So maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. The variable is defined. So anytime you want, you can refer to variable 1 and the value is saved in that. And Python is not a data type centric language. So anytime if I say var1 equal to ABC in double quotes, then it accepts that. And now when I say var1, it is a string. So you can see var1, first we initialized with an integer variable and then we made it as a string variable, so which is allowed in Python completely. So make sure you define your variables when you have a big code in such a way that you know what type of data is getting saved in that variable. So now, for example, if I have A is equal to 3, I have B is equal to 6. Now I can do a simple operation, that is A plus B, and it will give me an output. Similar to that, A minus B. So these are the simple operators which we have already. So A multiplied by B, A divided by B. So these are the simple plus, minus, multiplication and division operators, which is common in almost all the languages. But there are some more operators which are not available in many of the other languages. For example, if I say A star star B, so this becomes an power operator. So A to the power of B. So to simplify that, maybe I can say a is equal to 3 and b is equal to 2. And now if I say a to the power of b, you should get 9. Similar to that, you have one more operator, that is a divided by b. So that is like 2 slashes instead of 1 slash. So this usually will be giving you the quotient. So for example, when we say a divided by b, so you should get 1.5. But when you say a slash b, it will give you only the quotient. So maybe I should give a better example for this. Maybe a is equal to 100 and b is equal to 3. So when you say a divided by b, it gives 33.333, which continues. Now when I say a slash b, it will give you only 33, that is the quotient part. And we have one more operator, that is a percentage b, which will give you the remainder part. So when you do 100 divided by 3, you get a remainder of 1. So this is the remainder part. So now with division, you have 3 operators, that is the simple divided by, double slash, and the percentile. So you can get actual division output in float variables, it's in float value. You can get the quotient part, you can get the remainder part. So one big difference when it comes to Python from many of the other languages like C++, C# is we do not have an incremental operator or a decremental operator. What does that mean? In other languages, we have something called a++, which doesn't exist in Python. So if you use that, it will give you a syntax error. Instead, you have the plus equal to, which is coming from other languages as well. So that means when I say a plus equal to 1, it will increment it by 1. So now you see it is 101. So a plus equal to 1 is nothing but you are internally writing a is equal to a plus 1. So that means you are incrementing and assigning it back to a. Similar to that, you have a minus equal to 1 or minus equal to 2, whatever value you want. So which is again a way of decrementing and assigning. So when you write a minus equal to 2, that is nothing but you are saying a is equal to a minus 2. It's the same. But please remember, you don't have this plus and minus operator in Python. Also, if you are coming from other languages like C++ or C#, you might be using the AND operators or the OR operators, which do not exist in Python. Instead of these, you have the AND operator and OR operator in this way. So you write it in AND and OR. Also, if you are using not kind of symbol in any of the languages, this also doesn't exist here. Instead, you have not like this. So don't forget these. These will be used a lot later when we get into the proper programming. Since we have already discussed about the operators which are there in the Python language, you need to understand the priority of this. So this table represents the priority of the operators. So if you use multiple operators in one statement, this will be the priority which will be given. So the first priority goes to the bracket. So anything is inside the bracket will be executed first, irrespective of the orders. Second priority is for multiple asterisks, that is nothing but your power operator, and then goes your multiplication, division, and your quotient and remainder operators. Then the simple plus and minus, that is addition and subtraction operators. Then your equal to, not equal to, less than or greater than operators, and then your logical not, and then logical and then logical or. So this is the operator priority which will be given. And in case in a statement multiple of the same level is used, so for example, if in a statement plus and minus both exists, then the priority will be always going from left to right. So in this case, you might be overriding your board mass because it will always be going into the left to right. So for example, if you have a statement like 3 plus 4 minus 3 into 2 plus bracket 4 into 2. So now in this simple scenario, first priority will be given to the brackets, so this will be executed first, that is 4 into 2 8. Then when you get that, you will have 3 plus 4 minus 3 into 2 plus 8. Now next priority is given to the multiplication, so that is 3 to 6. So now 3 plus 4 minus 6 plus 8. So as per your board mass, you might be doing the plus first, but now since plus and minus are all in the same level of the priority, it will just go from left to right. So first 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 minus 6 is 1, and 1 plus 8 is 9. So the answer is 9. So don't think from board mass perspective, which you have learnt in your school in your mathematics class, but think from the priority level perspective, wherein if anything comes in the same level of priority in a single statement, it will always go from left to right, irrespective of what you have used. We have already seen like how we can define a string. So a is equal to, you can define ABC. Also you can define a is equal to ABC in this way with single quotes as well, which is also valid. So here we don't have a concept of character and string differentiated. So even if you use single quote or even if you use double quote, you can define a string. You can also use 3 times, that is like single quotes 3 times ABC, again 3 times. This is also valid. Also you have a 3 times double quotes with 3 times closing, and even this is valid. But there is a slight difference in the usage when we get into the full-fledged programming. At that time you will know we will be using this for our simple string of definitions or declarations, whereas the 3 quotes will be used for some specific purpose, which we will not discuss now, but you will see it later when we get into the full-fledged programming. Now in any language we have to take input from the user and display output to the user. So in this we use print, which is a method, and it takes some arguments. So for example, if I say hello world, it just displays hello world. So print is used to display any output. Print also takes multiple variables. So for example, I can define a is equal to ABC, b may be equal to def, and maybe c is equal to xyz. So I have defined 3 variables. Now I can say print a comma b comma c, and you get all the 3 variables with a space, and you can customize this in a very good way. For example, if you want print a comma b comma c and you want to separate it with some special character instead of the space, so you can use SEP and pass what should be the character. For example, I want it to be separated with an underscore, so I can just close this bracket. Now you can see all the 3 variables are printed but with a separation of underscore. If you are familiar with other programming languages, I'll give you a scenario wherein a is equal to string a and b is equal to string b, and you might be saying that a plus b is an invalid statement in some of the other languages, but here in Python it is very much allowed, which just plays a role of concatenation. So it is not only inside any print statement, but anywhere you can add 2 string variables and it will act like a concatenation. Also, if I say a multiplied by 3, so in some of the other languages it is an invalid statement because you are multiplying a string variable with an integer value, but here it is allowed. It will just repeat that. So a multiplied by 3, the value of a is character a, so it will just repeat that 3 times. So for example, if I say a is equal to abc string, and now if I print a into 4, so it will just repeat abc 4 times, which is very much allowed in Python. Also, you have a flexibility in Python to assign multiple variables in one shot. So for example, if you are assigning a is equal to 2 and b is equal to 3, so now I can say a is 2 and b is 3. Instead, I can do a comma b is equal to 4 comma 5. And now if I check, A is assigned with 4, B is assigned with 5. So now what happens is A is assigned with 4 and B is assigned with 5. So this is very much allowed in Python. So when we are talking about integers, we always be talking mostly in the decimal format, that is the 1, 2, 3 up to 10 kind of format. Whereas there are other mathematical forms of numbers also used in the real world. So for example, the octal form, the hexadecimal form, etc. So even Python supports that as well, and there are some inbuilt methods which are available for you. So for example, if you have a number like 23, you can represent this 23 in hexadecimal format as well. So for that, you just have to do is hex of 23, and you can see it shows with a 0x. So whenever something is starting with 0x, it is nothing but it's a hexadecimal. And similar to that, you have octal as well. So when you say OCT of 23, you will always see starting with 0O, so which means it is an octal number. So if I want to declare a variable like b is equal to 0x maybe 34, it is very much allowed. So now when I print b, it gives me 52 because it understands with the 0x that I am going to give the value in a hexadecimal format, and it gives in that way and gives the value. So when we don't specify any 0x or 0o, then by default Python understands that it's in decimal format and it takes it as a decimal number. So whenever you are on an interactive shell, it can be an idle shell or the command line prompt or even the online Python shell, you have some inbuilt methods for your help. Anytime you're stuck, you can use these methods to get some help. So one of them is the help method. So you can just type help, and when you enter, it enters you into a help prompt. So here you can type whatever keywords you know and you can get help of that. So for example, you can say keywords and it will just list you all the predefined keywords which are internally available. So for example, for, break, and, true, these are all the predefined or reserved keywords which are there in the Python. So you can see here is the list of Python keywords. Similar to that, you can say modules, which lists you all the available modules. Modules are nothing but some kind of package. In other languages you call them as packages, which are already shipped along with Python. So if you can see, these many modules are already available. So for example, some of the most popular ones are like math, wherein you can import this particular math module into your coding and then you can use the predefined methods of math. So how to use that? Maybe I'll get out of this help by pressing Ctrl C, and now when I'm back on my shell prompt, I can just say import, that is a keyword which is there, and I can say math, which is a module. So when you press enter into this particular environment, currently the math module has been imported, but you don't know what exists inside math. You have no idea about math. Then another inbuilt method comes into help, which is nothing but your dir. So when you say dir and you mention this particular module which has been already imported, then whatever is part of this module will be listed for you. So you can see there are square root, there is sine, there is cos, there is log, lot of inbuilt mathematical methods made available for you. So anytime you want any help of these, again you can use help. Instead of directly getting into the help interactive mode, you can just say help and say math module dot, and you can get anything like, for example, sine, and you can just close and it will give you a help. So it will say return the sine of x measured in radians. So any of these things which you don't know, you can take help from this particular help method. And if you are not aware of what are all the methods which are already available for you inbuilt, then again you can use dir and you can type underscore underscore built ins and underscore underscore. This will list you all the available inbuilt methods which are already available. So sometime back we were using a hex method and an oct method to convert the variables from hexadecimal to decimal and from octal to decimal. So you can see those methods are also available here. So these are all the available inbuilt methods which are provided by Python already. So now you might have a requirement to read some input from the user. So similar to print method, we have something called input method. So now if I define x is equal to input, so input gives you a prompt that is nothing but, like for example, enter your name, and you can just close this. So now when you press enter, it will give this prompt to the user, that is enter your name. So maybe I can say Codelligent, and the whatever content you provide here will be inserted into this particular variable. So now when I print x, it prints Codelligent. But always remember, the input which we take from user will always be in a string format. So even if I say maybe b is equal to input, what is your age, and press enter, I will say 35. So you might be thinking that since I have entered an integer, it will be an integer type, but it is not the case. So when you type b, you can see the 35 is inside a single quote. So that means it's a string format. So whatever you take from the input from the user, it is always in a string format. And if you want to convert this into an integer type of variable, then you have inbuilt methods available for that. So for example, I can say b is equal to int of b. So that is nothing but take the variable value which is now there in b, convert into a int type and assign it back to b. So now when I convert that, and now if I print b, so you can see the difference. So this is in a string format, whereas this is in an integer format. So there are multiple inbuilt methods which are available. Like if you want to convert this back to string, maybe c is equal to str of b. So this will convert back the integer into a string. So anytime you have a doubt related to this, as we discussed it already, you can just say help of str, and you can just expand this. So you can see here it gives you the complete information about what this method is and how you can use that. So these are all the building blocks of your Python programming. So how you define a variable, what are the different operators available, what are the inbuilt methods, inbuilt modules, inbuilt keywords available, how you print the variables, or how you print the information for the user, how you take input from the user. So these are all the building blocks. So we will further continue on top of this. We will, in the further videos, we will start looking into some of the more advanced topics, and slowly we will build up our Python knowledge. Thank you.